I met my ex in college. She was the most beautiful girl I had ever seen. She always had a crowd of guys following her around. I had some classes with her over the 4 years, but I never pursued her because all the other guys were interested. One day after class, she asked if I would study with her. The rest is history. We married and started our careers in the same industry, in different companies. It was a male-dominated industry. I found immediate success, while she struggled. She changed jobs in the first year and continued to struggle in the third. The year she became pregnant with our first son, she continued working throughout her pregnancy. A few weeks after giving birth, she had a routine physical. During this, her doctor asked to do a biopsy of her cervical area. The results showed that precancerous cells had been found. The doctor advised that if they wanted more children, they should do it as quickly as possible, as this will progress and a hysterectomy would eventually be needed. So, when she was ready, she became pregnant again. She gave birth to a boy within a year of each other. After this, more tests were done, and different ones. The doctors advised us to go ahead with the procedure, as we shouldn't wait any longer with 2 babies still in infancy. She had her procedure done and was really upset that she was done having children, as we had wanted a big family. She threw herself into being a great mom and was an amazing one. She became a stay-at-home mom and took care of everything at home, while my career was moving along. When the boys went off to school, she volunteered at the school and was I should also mention that we had close friends, U and B, who we went to school with. We saw each other often and they started their family around the same time as us. They have 1 son and we went on vacations together, had dinner outings and were best friends. After the son was born, the mother went back to work and is very successful. She had a good job until about 2001, when it was eliminated. The economy really affected her field, so she decided to be a stay-at-home mom. At the time, while looking for work, the dad stayed at home with the kids. When they were all in school, X and B still hung out. I guess they had an affair. This story is long, but it's not over. After about a year of hot sex, I asked the ex if she and I had ever talked about a threesome. It was all fantasy talk. We were still having a great sexual relationship. D had a friend he wanted to bring into the bedroom with them. The ex agreed. The day came, and this guy C came over to B's house. They got warmed up, so they had their threesome. Afterwards, the guy told them that he usually had to pay for sex, so he left a couple $100 and asked X if he could have a one-on-one with X. She told him she needed to think about that and B would get back to him eventually. C recommended someone else, and a business was born. Eventually B was reemployed and had to leave X on her own. She used a different cell phone and used the money. She rented out a storage unit and made it her closet office. She used the money. She even bought outfits for her clients, and even bought a car she didn't want. She kept the car at the storage unit, and everything was in cash. She never brought the money into our lives that I know of though. She said she tightened up our budget to pay for it. She only worked during school hours. She always picked the boys up at school on a few rare occasions, and would pick them up and keep them until. Our home life was never affected. I was working a lot and climbing the ladder, but we still had weekends together. Sex was usually on the weekends. I thought this was the best solution because of my work schedule. We would usually cuddle on the couch watching TV. In 2016, we had 1 son in college and the other a senior in high school. I got a call from my wife saying that she was in the hospital. She didn't give many details, but she said that she was hurt badly. I rushed to the hospital and my wife was hooked up to a bunch of machines. They had already cleaned her up and taken her for x-rays. She has a broken jaw, a broken nose, a fractured orbital bone and a possible concussion. She'll make it, but it'll be a long road ahead. A police officer was finishing up and left. I want to know what happened. She was crying and talking gibberish through her sobs. The nurse said I should let her rest. They were moving her to a room. She handed me a bag with her clothes. I looked in and asked if these were hers because she was wearing heels and the dress was unfamiliar. The nurse said this was what they brought from the hotel room, so they pushed me out of the room. I called my son to let him know later that night, when I was feeling more coherent, that I had some of the story. She had fallen asleep again, so I asked my youngest son to stay with her and I called him to find out what had happened. He told me everything. I'm leaving out the affair and his involvement. I was devastated. We eventually got her home after surgery on her jaw. The nose would wait. She convalesced at home as she got stronger. I got the whole story. I called A and told of the affair and that B was a pimp. She threw B out as she got on her feet. I told her we were done. I asked her to move out. She moved in with B. I got the divorce rolling. I am sitting here, 5 years divorced. I still love her. It is as if she had died. I don't think I could have coped with the grief. My boys know what she did. I haven't spoken to her since she left. I got a call from my oldest son, R, who was out of town for the holiday weekend. A friend called him to tell him his brother had been in a motorcycle accident. He was with him but didn't see the accident because he was riding ahead. I rushed to the hospital emergency room. They were cleaning S and sending him for x-rays. I was told to have a seat and the doctor would be out a few minutes later. I had my head leaning back and my eyes closed, so I didn't hear anything. Then I heard my name, so I looked up and saw my ex standing in the doorway. She asked for news and I said I was waiting. Then she asked if she could sit with me, so I invited her to a seat near me. I haven't seen her in 5 years since the divorce happened, so I didn't know what to expect. I assumed that she would be disfigured from her beating, but she was. Her face wasn't on display, though. It was flawless, as I remember. The one thing I did see was that her eyes no longer sparkled. That was a feature I never got enough of, even with a mask on. Her eyes didn't look the same. What you notice when she smiles is that her face just lights up. I imagine she just has a resting face now. Anyway, while waiting, we had a nervous catching up talk. She mentioned she liked the landscaping, and I said I did, too. We also talked about how the plants have matured. It's clear she's been by the house. I have no idea where she lives. My sons were told never to mention her to me. After the divorce, I tried to purge any memory of her. I replaced the bushes in the yard. She'd planned and planted them. I didn't mention that the inside of the house was redone. I even ripped out a wall. I had a construction dumpster in the driveway for many months. She asked how I was doing. I told her that I'd put myself on the back foot by working too much, but that I'd recently started seeing a therapist and joining a gym. I'd also taken up bike riding. She said that she'd been staying with me for a couple of months and that she'd been seeing a counselor who'd encouraged her to take some college courses in her degree field, which took a couple of years. She's now employed full-time. She said she'd only dated a few times, leaving the statement open for me to answer. I figured the boys were keeping her up to date on me, so I didn't have anything to add. The doctor came by and we talked about the extent of the injuries. The worst was to his foot and ankle, which were pinned under the bike when it went down. They scheduled him for surgery today. Everything's good, he just needs to heal and rehab. He'll be in until at least tomorrow, depending on his head injury and a slight concussion. I offered my house as a place to stay, as I have. He has a room and can work from home. We'll finalize that today, although that means his mother will want to visit. That will be a healing process for me. Update number 2, my son is healing well. He still has a way to go. We've decided he will stay here while he convalesces. He wants to go back to work next week. His boss is setting up something so he can work from home. I barely get him in the back seat of my SUV as he has to stretch out. It would be a nightmare driving him to work and back every day. Everyone has been asking about my ex is coming over, so I leave when she arrives. I go to the gym or a bike ride. My eldest son has tried to have a sit-down dinner with the 4 of us, but I told him no. She has been very gracious. She hasn't tried to force anything. She comes over and sits with our son. She cooks dinner for them. She brings groceries when she does cook. Sometimes his friends come over, and it gets a bit rowdy for me, but he forgets about his problem when there are visitors. I never said we never talk. Our conversations don't stray from. Our son is on his way to recovery. The doctor says he still has a long road ahead with physical therapy, but he's making progress. I've returned to the office to give him some space, and it seems the ex has started doing what many of you have suggested. She's been helping out with little things around the house. My son isn't the tittiest, so she's been cleaning up after him and doing his dishes. She'll also make him a meal and always leaves a plate for me. I've been telling my son that it's his lunch. The other night, she asked me if I'd be interested in going out to dinner that night. My son has some friends coming over. I told her no, and a little later she mentioned us getting a meal just to clear the air. I told her no. I finally said we ended long ago because of your actions, and it took me a long time to get over what was lost. I do not intend to revisit a relationship with you. She said she understood, and that was fine with me. I did say I didn't mind her coming over to see our son as long as he was back at his place. I thanked her for cleaning up, but it's not necessary. Thanks for the encouragement and kind words, but I'll make it through this. My heart has hardened.